All right, so here in Visual Studio, I've got this project that you can download in the supplementary materials of this lecture. It's called Queries, and it's basically the same Pluto model, but I have added some seed data in our configuration class here. So here you see I'm creating a list of tags, add them to the database. Then I create a list of authors. And finally, a list of courses. You can take a look at this on your own, as it's not the scope of this lecture. So the first thing I want you to do is to go to Package Manager console and run update database. So we have one migration here, which creates the entire model, and then we seed the database. So with this, you're going to get a new database called Pluto_queries. Look, Pluto_queries, and we expand here. We've got some data in the authors table, some in the courses, and so on. Now I'm going to show you how to use LINQ to query this database. So back to Visual Studio, close this. We go to Program. Now to get data, the first thing we need to do is to create an instance of our DB context. Remember Pluto context? Let's have a look here. So here we have 3 DB sets. A DB set, as I told you before, is a collection that represents a table in the database. So here we have 3 DB sets. I'm going to use DB set of course, this property here, to get the data from the courses table. So we go back to Program. First, we create a DB context. Now with LINQ, there are 2 ways to write queries. We can use LINQ syntax, which is like a query language, like SQL. Or we can use extension methods. I'm going to show you both ways in this lecture. So first, let's start with LINQ syntax. We declare a variable like query, and we write from C in context.courses. So from and in are LINQ keywords or operators, and that's why they're indicated by blue. C is just a temporary variable that we declare in our queries. And here is the source of our data. Now let's imagine we want to filter this list and only get C# courses. So we use the where operator. Note this little tooltip here, system.link. ReSharper detected that this operator is declared in system.link namespace. So I'm going to resolve this with Alt and Enter. If you don't have ReSharper, be sure to add using system.link on the top of your file here. All right, back here. So where C.name that contains C#. And now let's imagine we want to sort them alphabetically. So another operator, order by C.name. And finally, we need to use the select operator. Select C. That's all we have to write. Now let's iterate over this query object and display all courses on the console. So for each var course in query, console.writeLine, course.name. Let's run the application with Control F5. Look, we have 4 C# courses in our database, and they're sorted alphabetically. So that's the beauty of LINQ. We didn't have to write any SQL code. We just write C# code, and at runtime, LINQ providers will convert this code into SQL code to run against a SQL Server database. Now let me show you the other way of using LINQ to query your database. So this approach is called extension methods. Let's see how it works. So var courses equals context that courses. Now here we can chain method calls like Fluent API. So I'm going to use a method called where. And here we use a lambda expression. So C, short for course, goes to, and here I specify my criteria. C.name that contains C#. Next, I'm going to use another method, order by. Again, we use a lambda expression. Let me get rid of this here. So C goes to C.name. That's it. So we are chaining method calls. Now, some developers prefer to lay out their method calls like this. It's purely personal preference. There is no right or wrong. Now let's iterate over this courses object. For each var course in courses, course.name. Now I'm going to comment out this first one here and run the application. So again, we got the exact same result. So basically, we have two different ways of using LINQ to query a database. Which one is better? Well, the first approach here is good for programmers who are more comfortable with SQL-style queries. Whereas the second approach is good for programmers who are fine with lambda expressions, delegate actions, and stuff like that. Now, the reality is, these query operators you see here, they are a subset of what is available to you using extension methods. So these extension methods are more powerful. There are queries that you cannot write easily with this syntax here, or you cannot write at all. So my recommendation to you is learn both ways, but prefer to use extension methods. Okay, so that was a quick demo of LINQ in action. Over the next few lectures, we're going to take a closer look at both these styles of using LINQ to query a database.